Hello, guys. Welcome to this special recording. And this is a really unique episode because today we have a special guest as well, all the way from Costa Rica, originally from Canada, Chris Hanhimaki. And I'm really excited and blessed at the same time because we met with Chris on this wonderful journey through Costa Rica. And I think Chris gonna tell us in a second what is it about. But I'm really grateful for this opportunity because I think through these episodes bringing new guests and I new opportunities to learn about yourself. And I think Chris has a beautiful journey and can perhaps few words to you and who you are. So,
Yes, thank you. Happy for the opportunity as well. And yeah, like you said, I'm currently in Costa Rica, originally from Canada. I came down here permanently with my wife about 3 years ago now. And before that, originally I came in 2017, I believe it was, for a trip. And I just fell in love with the country, with the culture, and with the climate, of course. And I originally landed in a permaculture farm up in the mountains. And I remember walking outside to pick my ingredients for a salad. And I was like, you can live like this. It was just mind blowing coming from a typical, societal life with a job and, living in concrete and all that stuff. It was something I wasn't used to. So I knew I needed more of it. And that's ultimately why I came back here.
yeah, it's really interesting because I know Costa Rica can have that effect. I never thought about it before, but until I visited Costa Rica, and it wasn't on my bucket list until I actually got reminded years later that I wanted to go there. So it's I think it's a really special place. It's a small country, but very special place. And can you maybe share a little bit how you got the idea to actually go to Costa Rica? Was it on your bucket list or was it some, long idea that you wanted to fulfill, a dream?
Yeah, it goes back to when I was a kid, when I was in my childhood. I don't remember how old, but I used to collect these National Geographic magazines. And I remember flipping through them and seeing Costa Rica and the volcanoes and the jungles and all the colorful exotic animals. And something illuminated within me at that point. I've always wanted to visit the rainforest since seeing those magazines. It didn't specifically have to be Costa Rica, but I just remember the name Costa Rica. Like, it stuck with me ever since I was a kid. So at one point, 2017, when I mentioned, I was reaching a critical point in my life. Like, I was kind of burning out from my career, and something just happened, and I got this memory of wanting to go to Costa Rica, and I thought, now's the time. I'm over my job and I got to shake up my life a little bit. And that's what I did. I took a 5-week trip here.
Amazing.
I quit my job for it because I asked my boss if I could have the time off for this 5-week trip. I need to go and, discover myself and see, what's going on in my life. And he said, no, are you crazy? We can't give you 5 weeks off. Like, I'll give you a week. And I just said, well, I'm going to have to quit. I felt a pull so strongly. It didn't even matter when I return, how I'm going to pay my bills, what I'm going to do when I return. None of that mattered. I just knew I had to go so badly. I didn't even second guess. I just quit on the spot and booked my ticket.
That's impressive. Listen, guys out there, listen, this is obviously one way to do things. No, but it requires a lot of courage and a lot of guts to follow something, an impulse and calling or whatever you
The
call it.
calling, yeah. And that's the thing. It didn't. All the thoughts from my mind of what are you going to do when you come back? You quit your job. None of that ultimately mattered in the end because I fell in love with Costa Rica when I was here for that 5-week trip, and I made the decision to move here. So I went back to Canada and started selling off all my stuff. I didn't have to get a job again. That was it. So I didn't have to think about any of that.
So what happened on that trip? I know you mentioned the farm. that kind of awakened this whole idea? So you had the initial idea and you quit. I mean, that's really wow. I think I understand it now. When I traveled through Costa Rica and we came back with my partner Kate, and we were talking about it, and I just told you before we started recording about, I could totally imagine living there in the future. Just even heard that somebody from our distant family actually lived there 10 years and came back. I'm like, I can imagine why people would come back. The nature, like you said, the monkeys, the toucans, the squirrels, everything is just co-living peacefully. I've never seen it anywhere else. And we were just in Thailand, you've probably seen that. And I mean, it's more man-made than what you see in Costa Rica, all the beaches and everything. But on your journey, what happened? Were there particular, pit stops along the way where you said, wow, okay, I made a decision, but it could happen also the other way around, right? You go there, you're like, okay, that was a fatal error.
Right.
Like you follow your impulse, and then suddenly you're like, okay, all right, I think I have to get a job, and I just quit. So
yeah. So when I was here
as well down there, or was it just totally out of the question and you just went and big-headed discipline and you just
that was it. And when I was here on the 5-week trip, I visited the mountains. I hiked Sharipo, that's the highest mountain here, and I celebrated. This was during my 29th turning 30th birthday, so it was a transitional period of my life to turning 30. And when I hiked the mountain, I actually timed it because it's a 2-day trek. So I turned 30 on the morning of, I turned 30 on the summit of Sharipo. So the next morning when I woke up at the base camp. And so I visited the mountains. I've been to the highest peak and I've been to the ocean. And when I first touched the Pacific Ocean in Costa Rica, that's when something broke. That's when it's like, okay, this is home. This is like, it was like a homecoming. I don't know how else to describe it, but it illuminated something in me. I didn't know it at the time, but it illuminated something within me that this is where I need to be. Where the ocean meets the jungle and the mountains, and it's just so, like what you said, wild. Just that energy, like that raw nature. It's so intense, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So that was primarily what it was, just the nature. Of course, the culture is beautiful too, and the Pura Vida. I'm sure you came across that mantra when you were here. And to me, that's what it is. It's like a mantra, Pura Vida. They say it for everything. They say it as a greeting or a farewell or thank you, and you say words enough times and they start to have weight. There's energy in our words. So they're walking around all day, every day saying Pura Vida, pure life, pure life. And that's ultimately what it ends up feeling like here, is pure life. And I think that's what people feel when they come here, is just that pure essence of living and just living amongst nature and having fun, being alive.
It's very interesting what you say, because I feel this is exactly the paradigm what's happening in today's world, especially where I'm still at, where you are halfway doing your things and another way still at a corporate, and corporate has this power to slam people on the head. And you're familiar from your times, this all a 9-to-5 grind or a hamster wheel, whatever you call it, and it can be a trap for many people if you see it like that. But I know that it can create also this a possibility for you, like you did, and I think you're a good example of following in the footsteps and finishing what you started. Because I could totally, that's why I ask, because a lot of people I met in my life, and I mean, I've been in a similar situation where I said, guys, I'm leaving my home country, I'm going to a new one, and I had 50 euro in my pocket, and then I got to the new country and I had to have 3 jobs, and I a little bit underestimated the effort that it takes to sustain myself. But I think these are beautiful lessons, and like you said, in Costa Rica, I think this profound pure life you really feel all the way to your bone. You lie on on the back and you see pelicans, then you see the aras flying around, the turtles when you swim. It's just pristine. And people's the relationship towards nature is really like that. You don't feel it. At least in the countries I traveled, it's just this old touristic plastic everywhere, and there's barely nothing. Um, can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit, because you mentioned the ocean, and I know many people probably get curious because we were talking a lot about other things, but can you mention, because also the interesting way about ocean, can you talk a little bit about freediving and what it is? What is it for discipline? Because until I met you, and I mean in a wider group, obviously, I never really thought about freediving the way it is. And when sometimes I talk about it, that I tried it and I practice sometimes occasionally. I know you do it every day. I can talk about it. A lot of people ask, what the hell is freediving, and why it looks quite dangerous. So can you maybe tell first, how did you find your way to freediving and what it does to you and maybe people that you meet?
Right. Yeah, definitely. So it's an interesting story of how I found it. I don't even think I found it. I think it found me because like you, I didn't even know what it was. Like, of course, I knew you can hold your breath and swim underwater, but I didn't realize that it was actually a thing that people practice, and it's a serious thing. Until more recently, like just a couple years, and it was kind of just a series of events that led to it that I don't even know how it happened. So when I first touched the ocean, like what I mentioned in Costa Rica, I actually really liked the waves. One of the first beaches that I went to was a popular surf beach. And I loved playing in the waves and getting tumbled around in the power of the ocean. And I just loved feeling that power of the ocean. And I took up surfing. And I got pretty good. I wouldn't say like I was a pro. I used to skate when I was a kid, so maybe those skills translated into surfing, and I was able to catch a couple of waves. But then we ultimately moved from that area. When my wife and I first came to Costa Rica, like permanently, we established in that area where I had first gone, where those waves were. But then we found land in a different area. We wanted to go explore a different area, and that's where we're living now in the south on the Gulf of Dulce. And it has very calm water, very flat. There's no waves here. And at first, when we were coming down to this area, I was like, but where am I going to surf? I had just gotten into surfing, and I started just as I was really starting to get good. We're moving to this area where there's no waves. So I bought a paddleboard and I started going out in the mornings on the paddleboard. And quickly that replaced surfing for me. Like just the tranquil, meditative aspect of being on a paddleboard, especially during sunrise, the quietest part of the day, the world's still asleep. It was just also being surrounded by dolphins coming around the board and swimming under my board. I was like, wow, surfing? What? I don't need surfing. That was it. And then at one point I started diving off the paddleboard and just opening my eyes underwater and looking into this abyss. And, even a bit closer to shore, seeing the rocks underwater and the fish swimming around the rocks. So I bought a mask. It didn't come with a snorkel. If you've ever been to the Osa Peninsula, you know that you can't really get much here. You get what the store has. That's it. So they had a mask, but no snorkel. So I bought this mask and I was holding my breath to see underwater. I couldn't breathe through the snorkel. And then that's like one thing led to another. And all of a sudden, freediving popped into my realm. Like I said, I didn't even really know the word. So I researched a school here in Costa Rica, and I went and did my first freediving course, and it was like, that was it for me. That was, one thing led to another, and then I ultimately land on this thing that's just fits me perfectly. Because with surfing, It was a rush that I used to be an adrenaline junkie when I was younger. I used to race motorcycles really fast, going like 250 kilometers an hour down the highway on a motorcycle. That's what, yeah, that was my jam.
You can do it.
Right.
Yeah, as fast
So,
as you want.
so surfing was kind of like that for me. It was this rush. But then when I discovered freediving, it touched on that other essence that I have recently discovered in my life, the meditative aspect and the calm, like the tranquility. And I was like, this is more what I need in my life. I've had enough of fast and speed and adrenaline and, that getting tumbled around in the ocean and things like that. And I realized I needed more peace. That's also why the paddleboarding was so amazing for me. It felt so good in my soul because it was peaceful. And the diving, same thing. It's very peaceful. It's not taking a full breath, like, and diving under, see how deep you can go, and like swimming really fast and coming back up. And, it's
That's
not
how I
that.
tried to do it, but apparently that wasn't working.
No, you lower your heart rate, you get into a very calm, like Zen-like space, and that's when you dive. And that's what I fell in love with. So it's basically that. It's holding your breath, diving underwater with no gear, no scuba. It's just you, your body, your breath, and your mind, and going underwater.
No. Thank you for the explanation as well. And I mean, I know that you are now obviously a pro. Where when we met, you were just doing your master trainer, and that was really cool. And I mean, obviously, I didn't know much about you, but already then it was interesting because I mean, it's not the same story, but I know my partner pulled me into this, and she said, we are going to Costa Rica. By the way, we can do freediving there. So you're doing it with me, whether you like it or not. And this is how we met, really coincidence. But it was a very nice coincidence because I remember on the boat when we went 3 days, you could sense you were always very focused on the dive. And you could really, at least for me, it felt like you sensing the environment and you're really taking it in and you're preparing yourself. And it's not just I have to hammer through as I would do it, and I tried and then it didn't work. But then every time I saw you dive, you obviously were diving different, 40 meters or whatever more, and you could see how focused you are and how you're enjoying and coming back. And this whole, like you said, no gear, I mean, it was very scary for me obviously, like you already said, the Gulf Dulce, I would definitely recommend it to you guys. If you're around, please visit Osa Peninsula and check out Chris, because for me that was really a struggle on the open ocean and the rocky waves. A little bit of a nausea, and then diving, throwing up wasn't really pleasant. But
Right.
in the end, now obviously my partner got in a second level, and it was very cold here when we were doing it in Spain. So I can definitely understand the conditions there where you are at with the dolphins and everything is just perfect. And could you tell me, Chris, a little bit about, because I really totally understand this calming the mind and just really coming back to yourself. And I think this is the big number one that people need to go back to, because a lot of people just lost that. I feel that really and I mean, there is meditation and I feel that's okay. I'm not an expert on that. I tried mindfulness for many, many years, and I still do. But I feel this is like mindfulness on steroids. At least
Right.
this is how, when I dove, and I mean, my dives are different than yours, but still, I think I had one or two, and I really enjoyed it, regardless of my problems with equalization and other things. But it was really a moment where I'm like looking up and I'm like, wow, this is impressive. Just this massive amount of water. So do you think there is an element of this where people could really also use it, obviously the first part to calm, but also for performance, optimizing
That's
themselves?
that's See, that's what it is for me. It's more a spiritual practice, kind of a meditative practice rather than a sport. I mean, it is also a sport in that you require some degree of athleticism and ability to swim to great depths and back up. And of course, you have to be optimal with your nutrition and just like an athlete would. So there is that aspect to it. But for me, more so, it's a spiritual practice. And kind of a dynamic meditation. I do enjoy sitting down to meditate from time to time, but I have a really monkey mind that just doesn't stop. And being in the water, underwater, is the only place on this planet that it actually stops and it just shuts down. I don't know why, but it just does. And I've had some pretty good deep dives, but honestly, my favorite dives are more shallower, like between 10 and 20 meters, and going down and just hanging and staying there. And like you said, like looking up and just seeing all that water above you and around you, and just knowing that you're in the abyss, just immersed in this element. And what you said is bang on, that it's like mindfulness on steroids. I sometimes feel like it's even maybe a shortcut in a way, because like in a 2-minute dive or a 3-minute dive, I feel like I've accomplished what it takes in like an hour-long meditation sitting, or an hour-long yoga, like asana practice or breathwork practice. I feel like just a 2-minute free dive is beyond that. It's really incredible. And I would put it up there with like a practice like plant medicine ceremonies or something like that, in terms of potency and transformative powers.
It's interesting because I feel that I mean I heard it somewhere. It's probably not coming even from me, but that freediving is looking inward, whereas scuba diving, it's more looking outside. And
that's one of my favorite quotes. Yeah,
I don't know who said it, but I really liked it during the course we were doing, and I see it now with Katie when she's diving, and now even this cold water, she had like went probably half what you do, but to 25 meters, and she said, I mean, it's mesmerizing to watch. And also she said, I had like probably 2 dives where I was really focused and enjoyed, and that really is probably what you say, this whole amygdala part of the brain, which we were talking about it. I would wonder, a lot of people that use, mushrooms and medicine for treating, a lot of disorders like anxiety, panic attacks. And I mean, I come from that side where, when I was younger, definitely I had overdeveloped, that side of things, where because just the environment I grew up with was very dangerous and very unrewarding. And I could feel and sense, like we were talking about, that breath and really mastering that. And that's something now what I'm really enjoying when you're training this. I mean, you could talk about it also, how to train for people who are not in Costa Rica, because obviously, again, whoever listens to this, guys, I would encourage you, book your flight, book your courses with Chris, and right away enjoy the Golf Dulce?
Golfo Dulce.
Exactly. And but also
the sweet golf.
the journey for me was, as a novice, and still, even I practice, I'm still novice to this. How can people start, even if they are maybe not in the luxury of living next to the ocean? Like, I'm watching almost your stories every second day or so, and then I'm like, oh man.
The practice starts out of the water. In my opinion, it starts with your ability to be in a peaceful state, in a mindful state, and in my experience, I've since opened my own school since we met down here in the OSA, and I've had a number of students coming through here, and I noticed a commonality that the ones who come through here that have a background in yoga or breath work or meditation, they're the ones that really excel, and they pick it up so quickly. Whereas it's not to say that you have to be in that mold in order to free dive, but it seems like it comes a lot more naturally to them. So that's where the practice starts, is being more in tune with your breath and your body. It's like the ultimate somatic therapy, like listening to the cues in your body. And yeah, it's going back to what we were talking about earlier with anxiety and depression. And, I know a lot of people have like a fear of water, which is interesting to me and maybe a whole other conversation. But I feel like when you immerse yourself in it, it goes away. Freediving is one of the only thing in my life that has actually quelled my anxiety and depression and depressive tendencies. And I've been around and I've tried everything. I've done mushrooms. I've done even weed in like a more intentional kind of way. I've done every number of substances you can imagine. I've done it, and nothing has worked like freediving. And in fact, once I started freediving, I've quit experimenting with anything. I quit drinking alcohol, even. I've quit coffee, drugs, all of it. I haven't touched any of it since starting freediving. So it's been a total replacement for everything.
That's interesting. It also shows how powerful it is to master to kind of learn on this journey to manage your own body and your mind. And I'm a big advocate on this one. And obviously you connect the third part, which is the spiritual life. And it opens my eyes a little bit as well to what you said before, that a lot of people like myself who treat everything as performance, and it is, no right or wrong, but it can move you really quickly in different areas. That's why sport was a very big area for me, because I often went then back to corporate or whatever role, and I could be very good at that just because I had this mental threshold. But now that you said with really using more the spiritual side of things, I wonder if all this equalization, all these, just like holding on to things, people, like you said, who have anxieties, if it doesn't block you and if you just let go of these things, you need a environment for it, right? You need the right teacher like you are. That's why I also highlighted you're very calm. You seem to be a very patient person. You need to have that, for me in case at least, the still water to some extent.
Right.
And then you have the environment. Then you know that, you don't have to worry, because I know freediving as well, we didn't talk about it. It has to be done in a safe way, because before I remember, and we were studying, a lot of people use it just for the performance, just holding onto some type of machine and dropping as deep as possible.
Yeah.
A lot of accidents, but this is not what you do, and this is not the practice that a lot of people are doing. It's just like this meditative type of approach to challenging your boundaries, but also probably more importantly, going inward. And I see it on your website, because it's just like when you go through your website, it describes this journey for you, but also I think that's probably the right way to approach things. And that also leads me, like, the question that I had about, do you think this could help to make this world a better place? Because this is the mission I'm on. Like, if you ask yourself, what is the legacy that Chris want to leave in the end of the life? I think you already stepped on it, at least to my feeling, because you did a lot of bold stuff to get where you are. And now you're helping people, you're meeting people to kind of open them up to their own experience through freediving. But it seems also for your own, substances and abuse, like we all have something in our life and some type of abuse. Seems like that could be a doorway to solve multiple things, not just
so
one.
many things. Yeah, exactly. So many things. And one of the primary things too is the fear of water that I would really love to help people overcome. And I've had a couple people message me and say, because I post stories of like doing a hang dive, like diving down 10 meters and hanging there for a couple minutes, and you get like a reply, "Oh my god, my anxiety went through the roof."
I think I could. I felt it, and I didn't get to 8 or something, and back then I was better at holding breath, but I know how that felt. It's just like you're like,
but when you're down there, it's like you transition into a different, it's almost like you're having a remembrance or something, and not your mind, but your body is having a remembrance, because there was a period of time in all of our lives where we were fully immersed in water, right in the womb before we were born.
Yeah.
And we didn't take our first breath until we came out. So we were in the womb, immersed in water completely. And that's kind of what I feel it does. It mirrors that. So when you're down there doing a deep dive or a hang or whatever it is you're doing, you're immersed in water, your body remembers that feeling. Like it remembers, the feeling of water all around you and kind of holding you. And that's what it feels like. The ocean's That's what I feel like when I'm doing a dive, is the ocean's kind of holding me. And the pressure that I feel on my body as I go deeper, it's like hugging me, and the hug's getting a little bit tighter and tighter, and it feels good. It's not uncomfortable. It feels calming. Some people use like a weighted blanket to calm their anxiety. So it's a similar kind of thing.
Well,
It's
this
just the
one, not
pressure.
it away. But it's a good acronym.
It's the pressure on your body, and it just feels calming. And that's what people can't wrap their head around in a theoretical, perspective. That's something you have to experience and actually do it. So that's something I would really love to help people get in the water and at least try it. And don't come with the story of my anxiety won't let me do that, or I'm scared of water, whatever you want to say. Like, let those stories go and try it, because again, the transformative power, like we talked about, to get off the substances and just change your life completely is remarkable. And not only that, but it goes beyond that even, and inspires you to want to take better care of the environment, because when you're down there and you have dolphins swim by you, or a turtle, or a ray, or anything can swim by you. My wife and I were training here in the Gulf, and a humpback whale and her calf came up within 10 meters of us. They were hanging around. And, seeing this, it's like, it sparks that you want to take better care of it. So you start taking better care of yourself to be able to do this practice, and then you start taking better care of your environment. It trickles outwards, and it's inspirational in so many ways.
Yeah, you definitely hit the hammer on the nail, and I think this is the society we live in. The consumerism is huge, and people thrive on give me more. I want to have more than other people around me, and with what you're doing, it's exactly the opposite. You try to live at least some type of minimalistic life and give back to the nature and give back to others. So that's some sort of legacy with what you said, maybe helping people as well, overcoming the fear of water, which I think is super interesting, because I'm sure there is a huge community of people who actually would, even now I see with myself, and I think I have to go deeper. I feel my heart and I'm like, oh yeah, I feel my fingers tingling. But it's also just probably, like you said, experience, because you've been doing it for a while, and now you can allow yourself to hang in there and also have these mental transitions where you are like, oh, the ocean is hugging me. I never saw it like that.
Yeah.
But I can imagine this whole pura vida translates into deeper things than just that, or good life. And this is, I think, also very powerful what you do for people who go through your courses, to just show them that it's more than just, hey, you dive down and you came up great and you feel better for a minute or two. You're taking that with you and you're building that experience, I reckon.
Yeah.
And that's quite powerful. Chris,
Yeah.
I'm thinking also, because of the whether that could be interesting for our listeners in the future, maybe to do some type of workshop or whatever you would like to do, or another discussion, because I think there's a lot of things that we could unpack for maybe listeners or people who will watch this, who want to go in the future through some freediving course. Because like myself, and now probably a lot of people who listen to this will discover, hey, I never heard of freediving. And then one thing that obviously is important is the teacher you choose. That I can imagine. I mean, back then, and Brett probably better than me, but with him, I mean, I felt that was a wonderful combination with how he was. But with you, I can sense, if I discontinue, well, I will continue and never come back, then I can totally see that you're probably helping people in the way you are, and that I feel a lot of people, not everybody has this. I met now through this whole exposure to the freediving world, different people, and you can see everybody has their own angle at it. But I feel
Yeah.
like this is probably the deepest you can go, really, to see it as a transformation rather than just a tool. I still see it as a tool because I'm still the performance guy, but it's still really good to kind of connect the dots. So, do you have any concluding words where what you would say to people who will listen or watch this? Where can they maybe find you? And because you said a lot of profound wisdoms throughout this, and anything that you want them to remember from this conversation?
Well, yeah, you can find me at Sunyata Freediving. That's our website, and we're in the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica. And the one thing that I would say is maybe like what I said earlier, let go of the stories. The thing I really feel like is a disservice to freediving is the way it's been portrayed in media. And even more recently, there was a new Netflix documentary released, and I feel like, of course, I watched it because I'm a freediver, and I don't think it did the sport any favors, because they focused a lot on the what could go wrong and the dramatic things that could happen, and there is an inherent danger to it, sure, but there is in everything. You can die a million different ways on this earth. And I can tell you that the more you do it, the more you do get comfortable. And just to give you a little story, because you kind of touched on it when you said through repetition, it becomes easier. And you're right. When we first moved to the Gulf, I had this feeling when I would swim in there, like my instincts would be on full alert, because it's also a hammerhead shark sanctuary habitat. They give birth to their young, and so there's that thought in your mind. And so I would always kind of be like, I wouldn't say on edge, but alert, I guess you could say, when I swam. And I saw one day a plastic bottle floating out there, and it was maybe like 100 meters away. And I was like, oh, I got to go get that. I can't let this plastic go away. I got to collect that and throw it out. So I had this debate with myself on the shore. Do I do it? Do I not? It was really early morning. That's when sharks like to feed. These were all the thoughts going through my head. And then I just did it. I was like, you know what? I got to get this plastic out of the ocean. So I swam out there and did it. And I felt so accomplished after that. And that was just swimming out 100 meters from shore into the Gulf. Like, that's nothing. Now you look at what I'm doing, paddling out there like kilometers out there, diving 40 meters down into it with not a fear in the world, because I realize it's as safe as anywhere else on this earth, and the thing that I've struggled with a lot in my life is the need to have control over situations. And I feel like when you're in that space, you can very well limit yourself to things that could change your life. And when I go out there in the ocean and when I surrender and let that control go and dive or do anything in the ocean, there's that vulnerability where you kind of have no choice but to surrender. Otherwise, you can drive yourself into a crazy panic attack. You have to surrender. And when you do, that's when you realize that it's magical. A whole other world opens up, and you shed this thing that you're carrying, and it feels like a weight lifted off your shoulder. Like, I can't even describe it into words. It's something totally experiential. And that's why I would implore people, especially who are scared of water in any way, to let go of the story and try it, or try something in the water. Like, our bodies are 70% water. The earth is 70% water. This is a powerful element, and we have, I'm sure you learned it from your freediving course, we have the same reflex that dolphins and whales have, a mammalian dive reflex, that when we're in the water, our physiology changes and we adapt to that environment. Same with how whales and dolphins are affected. So it's powerful, and it's, like I say, it's completely life-changing. So for anybody who's even remotely curious to try it, who maybe has that anxiety or that little block that's stopping them, let that go and go for it. If you feel like it's something you would want to explore, you got to go for it and try it.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. It's a beautiful summary. So check Sunyata Freediving. Hopefully, I said it right.
Yes.
And also, I think just the trip that you mentioned at the start of this conversation to Costa Rica, I would guys recommend you to just take the wider trip to Costa Rica. Maybe you can even contact Chris to be your guide or give you some recommendations. But I think that was very profound for me, and realizing that we are more than just our jobs and our titles and more than just our 9 to 5. And unfortunately many people think like that, and I know because I for a long time thought like that. But that's a little sad self-esteem if you put everything on one card and you don't enjoy the life, like Chris said. And it's
true though, right? Like when you meet someone, one of the first questions you're most often asked is, "Oh, what do you do? What do you do?" You know, because your job defines you, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we spend there a lot of time at work, and I think a lot of people put their self-worth on that and define themselves, and it's their identity. But I like how you described it, that the ocean is really a way to just let go and realize that you can't control it. Like if a wave comes over
Yeah.
you, it's a powerful thing. And in Costa Rica especially, I remembered how the ocean pulled me in, and I crazily paddled back until I let go, and then finally I could just glide back with the wave. But if you try to go against the stream, it doesn't work, and we try it in life too often to do like that. So but word Chris, thank you so much for your time. I know I
Thank you
have a
so
feeling
much.
we might continue this journey, because I really enjoy a lot of the wisdom you're sharing, and I think there is a lot of wisdom to share with people in this matter. But let us conclude. If you have any question, please reach out to me, reach out to Chris. I will share the links as well to Sunyata and to your website, and obviously to Instagram and anywhere where you see fit. And guys, stay safe, stay legendary, as we always say, and be a good human being. Remember, all these things and experiences, just like Chris described, should make you a better human being and to make this world a better place. And we all have our own little way to do that. And I'm really grateful for you, Chris. You do it beautifully, and I think that's should make a lot of people jealous also at some point to really return a little bit back to the basic primal way of living. So thank you again for your time, and I'm looking forward to see you again soon, my friend.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Bye-bye.